Hey there everybody, it's Todd Nauck, and I'm back with another speed drawing video. This time I'm doing a full-sized 11x17 commission of Magneto. And as you can see here, I've already busted right into the pencil stage. I had done a sketch prior to this, and then transferred that onto the artboard. Unfortunately, I did not shoot video of that, and I apologize. I decided a little late to get into this, but at least we got the pencils. I could show you the sketch that I did. It's a 1" by 2" sketch of Magneto. Actually did a couple of sketches there. I like that first one, a little more action, better. Flipped it in Photoshop, scanned it in, flipped it in Photoshop. I liked his I guess I'd be his right hand coming at us a little better. Kind of tilted the angle a little bit. Blew it up to 11x17, printed that out on 11x17 paper, took that to the drafting table, to my light box, and transferred all the pencil line or the sketch lines onto the artboard so I could just jump right into the pencils. Keeps pretty much everything in proportion, you know, as far as comic book proportions go, and helps speed up the process a little bit. Make the most of my time and deadlines and stuff. So Liam Leverage from Twitter asks, what supplies do I use both traditionally and digitally? So I'm using a 2H pencil here for the initial pencils, especially knowing I'll be doing my own inks. It's easier to erase and doesn't smudge too much if I use a softer lead. Though I do use an HB for the Magneto's face there, as you can see, to make sure I get those details just right before going into inks. But I don't go any softer than an HB lead because then it gets way too smudgy for me. For the inks, I use mostly Pigma Micron markers. I'm using a 08 here. I also use 05, 01, and a really thin 005 for the smaller details. I also like using a Pentel pocket brush pen, which I'll be using a little later on in this video. Copic Multiliner pens, which I'm about to use right here for these brush tips to get bigger, beefier, bolder lines. Different sized brush tips. Used a bigger, thicker one, and then here's a slightly smaller one for a little more control. And I also use a Kuretake brush pen as well. And what I like about the Pentel pocket brush pen and the Kuretake brush pen is that they have refillable cartridges. So when you run out of ink, you don't have to throw away the pen. You just pop in a new cartridge, and that really helps save money. Saves on trips to the art supply store as well. So those are the traditional materials I use, whether they be for commissions, convention commissions, or my professional work for the comic covers or interiors. And I draw on just pretty much Strathmore Bristol board. Really like that, especially as smooth as possible. I like the smooth stuff. I don't like a rough tooth to it at all. I prefer it smooth so that the markers glide across the paper a lot more cleanly. Gives a nice slick look. As far as digital, I don't really do any. I haven't had a chance to really do much with digital comic creating just yet. I mean, aside from you know, tweaking art in Photoshop, like blowing up a layout or cleaning up inks in before sending off the files, making sure any fleck or speck is taken out of the artwork. I hate to have a black blotch show up in the middle of someone's face or right on the eyeball. You know, make it look weird. So sometimes those little, you know, dust particle can get on the scanner or something like that. So so just going into Photoshop and keeping things clean. But as far as actually creating original art in a digital format, aside from doing some sketches on a sketchbook app on my iPad, I haven't had a chance to, you know, do anything major like with a Cintiq or something like that. I'd love to give it a try. I see what my fellow comic artists are doing, and it's amazing, and it looks a lot of fun. I'd love to give it a try sometime. So I just have not had an opportunity to go check that out and experiment with it. So that's something I have on my to-do list. But until then, I'm just going to keep you know, doing it the way I do. And the nice thing about doing it like this is that there is a one-of-a-kind piece of original artwork at the end of the day, and I do like the traditional feel of you know, pencil and pen on a piece of paper. So thank you for that question, Liam. And speaking of doing you know, comic book art, Kelly Cassidy from my Facebook fan page asks, when doing your comic book art, do you prefer a script that lays out the detail of what the writer is trying to convey, or do you prefer a looser depiction, giving you more artistic freedom to have some fun? And ideally, and thankfully, most every writer I've worked with kind of walks the line between the two. They give me all the information needed to make sure we are telling as clear of a story as possible for the reader, but they allow me the artistic freedom to call the shot on layout and panel size and placement and camera angles. And sometimes a writer will say, you know, this is a down shot, and I change it to an up shot, just depending on what I feel would be more dynamic for the page, or make for a better layout, or just my personal storytelling visual style. So and the writers I've worked with have been very very cool to let me to take that freedom. And I do definitely try not to abuse that freedom, because I do like to convey exactly what the writer is trying to tell. I mean, it's their story as much as it is mine. It's collaborative. So so I don't go so crazy that they get the pages back and wonder what the heck did I do. So I definitely do feel it's important to respect what the writer has written. But having worked with great writers and editors, that I can make suggestions or say, hey, could I do this? Can I do that? Can I merge these two panels to make it one big panel, or and maintain still conveying that information that the reader needs to see and the writer has put down, and leaving room for dialogue and stuff like that. So it's nice when the process is collaborative like that. And that's when I work with people who write full scripts. When I work with people who write what is called the Marvel style, where they write a basic plot, like page 1 through 2, here's some action, pages 4 through 6, you know, fight scene, and make sure a police car blows up, and this, that, and the other happens, and here's some suggested dialogue of what they think they might be saying. Then I really have so much freedom. It's a lot of freedom to really just kind of tell the story my way, and really get to call a lot of shots that I'd be surprised how much I get to really to run with that. And people that I've worked with that write that way, like Tom DeFalco, who's probably a lot of people know from his writing of Spider-Girl at the MC2 universe, and then Louise Simonson, and I've been a fan of her stuff since New Mutants when I was a kid, and Power Pack, and X Factor, one of my all-time favorite comic book runs that she and her husband did back in the 80s. She and Tom DeFalco write, you know, that loose plot Marvel style, and it's a little daunting to one, be working with legends like that, and then two, that they'd be so appreciative and affirming of what I did. You know, that I take their plot, I come up with a visual, and tell the story my way, and you know, I'd make notes about what I was thinking of, what the characters were doing in that scene, and then they would script on top of that, and both had been very, very affirming of what I would come up with, and it really meant a lot, especially coming from, like I said, comic book legends such as themselves. And oh, here I am using the Pentel pocket brush pen to fill in some blacks and create some organic lines to the cape there. It's the brush pens are really great for creating some shapes, and you'll see that here when I draw the Magneto underpants as well. So I'll be breaking out the Pentel pocket brush pen for that as well. But lastly, just about the working Marvel style script, it does allow for a lot of freedom, because you're getting to call a lot of shots there about what's to be conveyed on the page and how many panels, and then the writer's going to dialogue on top of what they see that you've written there, and so that takes a lot of trust from a writer, I'd imagine. But it's very rewarding to work in both styles of writing, so I really appreciate both. So thanks for those questions, Liam and Kelly. And if you have a question that you'd like to submit, post it in the comment section below, or visit my social network pages, either Twitter or Facebook, or shoot me an email. Those are listed in my description below, and I'll do my best to answer them in future videos. So I'm wrapping up the line art here, and just going to drop in some nicely drawn ellipses for the studs on Magneto's collar. Young artists, do not be afraid to use drafting tools. We're draftsmen as much as we are artists, so we want those details to look nice and clean, unless it's your style to have really you know, more hand-drawn sort of circles like that. But My style's a little more clean, so I use the drafting tools. And I'll be posting a video of the colors here real soon, so stay tuned for that. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.